A mail merge is a powerful tool that allows us to send nearly identical letters to many different people with small changes throughout the letters. For example, we could send an invitation letter to a large number of people and automatically have the same letter sent to every person except with their name and address filled in appropriately. So let's take a look at how to do this. First, let's create the letter that we're going to send. And I'm just going to create a very bare bones letter for the sake of saving time in this tutorial. And I'll fill this out a bit. So clearly you would want this letter to look a little bit more formal than this. I don't even have the signature block in here, but this will work just for the purposes of the example. So here's our Word document. And now let's create an Excel document. In this Excel, we're going to list all the different types of information that we want to vary from version 1 to version 2 of the letter. So we'll have the person's name. In this case, that's going to be just their last name. Well, we'll have their first name up here as well. So let's do this. We'll have address 1. That's for the address block. Address 2, address 3. These don't need to be the same as these. I just wrote these to be descriptive. And we'll have salutation. And let's enter in some names here and some sample data. I'll fill this out a bit. And we'll add some addresses in here. And we'll add the salutation. In this case, this is just going to be the last name of each person. And a Mr. or Mrs. Alright, now let's save this file. And I'll just save it to the desktop for now. Alright, now let's go back to our document. We're going to go to the Tools menu, go to Letters and Mailings, go to Mail Merge Wizard. We'll leave this as letters. Click Next. And yes, we're going to use the current document. So Next, once again. Now we're going to select the recipients. So we will browse to find the list we created. So I'm going to go to the desktop and look up the list. And it's going to ask us which sheet we saved it on. Now if you can't remember, you can go back to the document and we can see that we saved this data on sheet 1. So yes, we'll say sheet 1. And it has picked up the column headers here, address 1, address 2, address 3. And we can make sure that all of these contacts are selected. Every once in a while, if you paste data in or if you do weird things, it will think you also want to include some empty lines, and so you'll want to uncheck those empty boxes, those boxes for the empty lines, otherwise you'll get extra versions of the letter that you don't really want. But in this case, we're fine. So we'll say OK. Now say Next. So now we need to add the special fields that will draw the information from the Excel document. So here's how we do this. Select address 1. Well, first, let's just click here. We'll say More Items. Here's the list of different fields. So we're going to add each of these. So I'm just going to double click on each one of these. You can see it added it there. And I'll double click on the rest. And we'll move them around on the page later. And say Close. Now, let's move these. So I'm going to select it. Well, for these just belong on separate lines. So I'm going to hit Enter, Enter, and I can delete these placeholder fields. Now notice that you need to keep these brackets along with them. If you break them up, then it will mess up how the mail merge behaves. Then for the salutation, I'm going to move this down here. So I'm going to cut this and paste it here. Once again, I made sure to get the entire salutation. It wouldn't have worked if I just grabbed the word like that. And now we'll say Dear, so it will fill in as Dear Mrs. Bramnick or Dear Mr. Postnikov and a colon. Now we'll say Review your letters, preview your letters. So here it fills in the way that your letter will look, and you can use these arrows to click to the different versions. So you can see they look fine. Sometimes you'll notice errors. For example, there might be an extra space between the name and the colon, or you might have had some misspellings, and you can go back and change things if that's the case. You can go to previous steps, but in this case we're fine. So I'm going to go next to complete the merge. Now if you're ready to print, you can just say print, but usually I like to save a document with all of the different versions of the letters in it, so I can reprint them later if I want, and I won't have to go through this entire process again. So I usually like to go to Edit Individual Letters, and so it's going to merge them to a new document, and I want to merge all of the letters. So I say OK. So here we have a new document. It's 6 pages long, and each page is a separate version of the letter. And as you can see, they're all the same, just with different names and addresses. Now there are some tricky things about the way that this prints. First of all, for most documents, if we're printing a multi-page document, then we want the first page to be printed on letterhead and the rest of the pages on blank paper so that we don't waste letterhead. In this case, however, we want all of the pages to be printed on letterhead. So we want to go to File, Page Setup, and go to Paper, and for some reason it's not allowing us to choose here from different trays. Let's try going to the Print menu and go to Properties. Well, I don't see the option here. I think it's a little bit buggy right now. Usually it allows us to choose from tray 2, which is the letterhead tray. Now another issue with this printing is that for some reason a merged letter like this will not allow you to print a subset of the pages. So we have 6 pages here, and if you've already printed page 1 and 2 and you just want to print page 3, 4, 5, and 6, normally you can say 3 to 6. But if you give this command, it will just print all the pages, 1 through 6. This is true even if you just try to print a single page, for example the current page, it will still print all 6 pages. So you have to be ready for that when you print, and if you have a document that has 55 letters and you only need to print 1, then what you should do is just copy that 1 letter into a new document and print that 1. That's all. Ask Nick if you have any more questions.